Modern recording technology is nearly limitless, and its accessibility feels like nothing short of a miracle. Here's the thing though, and this isn't to say we're not blessed to have the technology we currently have. So much music magic was made when people pushed the technology they had past its limits. Enter the hologram Chroma Console, a love letter to the quote, eccentricity, grit, and lively instability of beloved vintage recording technology. Welcome to Get Offset. My name is Emily and your smile is so charming. Hologram sent me this Chroma Console to check out. I don't believe there was any expectation of a demo, but I like it, so I'm doing one anyway. Thoughts and opinions are all mine. If you want to skip to a certain section, like sounds or other features, hit up the video description for chapters and timestamps. The video description also has links, including affiliate links and links to the Patreon. But let's start with some basic features here. The Chroma Console has 20 effects divided into 4 rearrangeable modules. It has stereo ins and outs, input level calibration, knob recording with gesture features, 80 user presets, MIDI in, out, and through, as well as clock synchronization, tap tempo, and a lot more. I won't be able to get into every element of this pedal, namely the MIDI stuff, but my goal is to touch on some key features and sounds. Each column here is a module. We're going to start with character because it's first, and the first in character is drive. The top knob by default is tilt, and that's kind of like an EQ sort of thing. I say sort of like it's not literally an EQ. And then a mount. Adds more drive. We press this button again to get to sweeten, which is a preamp that adds EQ, compression, and saturation. And just turn it off so we can hear it. Whoop. I really like that one. I find myself using it a lot. Fuzz is a vintage voiced fuzz. Howl is a resonant filter fuzz. I also like this one a lot. It's more versatile than the name suggests. I especially like that one on lower amount settings. The last one we have is swell, and that is envelope triggered volume swells. Of these, I think Sweeten and Howl are my favorites. They've definitely been my go-tos. Sweeten is just always nice, and Howl is really cool and scratches a sonic itch, especially with lower amounts. But we're gonna move on to movement, which has some modulation, but it's not exclusively modulation. The secondary control is drift, and its function kind of varies by effect. The first effect we have there is doubler, which emulates double tracking, but it's also capable of slapback. Rate sets the doubling time range from long to short, short being like almost not noticeable. From there, drift introduces and increases intensity of random momentary pitch shifts, which we will get to, but first, let's just hear it. I'm going to crank the amount so you can hear things really well. But let's check out that drift. To hear that, we press on the left 2 buttons at the same time. Thankfully, there's a little guide right on the pedal. And let's crank it to make it very obvious. Hit the bypass switch. didn't note is there is an overall mix knob. I will be keeping that cranked for much of the demo, but we don't have to. If you want to kind of mellow it out, everything out, that's a great way to do it. I really, really love the doubler effect, but I don't want to spend too much time on it, so let's move along to vibrato. For vibrato, rate sets the frequency, amount sets the depth, and drift, which is already on, increases the stereo width of the effect and introduces a random modulation waveform that evokes tape, warble, and instability. I'm pretty sure that's a direct quote from the manual. I like that one a lot too, to be honest. Let's move on to phaser, where rate is again the frequency. Amount adjusts the intensity and adds phase shifting stages from 2 to 12 stage. Let's minimize that a bit. Drift adds randomness to the phase shifting waveform, which can be fun and glitchy. We'll start with that on. Let's remove that. Hear it without. I'm not sure how well this is showing up on the camera, but you will notice that LED is flashing along to go along with the rate, which we can also tap in. Let's go to tremolo time. Tremolo is blue. Rate is rate. The speed. Amount is depth. Drift again will introduce randomization, and we'll get there. Adding the drift back in. I'm gonna crank the randomness with the tremolo because I think it's really fun to do so. We'll turn then the rate and the depth down. It adds a really glitchy but tasteful undercurrent with that setting. It's one of my favorite ways to use this pedal. Lastly, we have pitch, and I'm generally not a big pitch person, so I'm really only going to show this one to you in the way that I like to use it. But to get the controls out of the way, rate determines the pitch shift, with noon being none. All the way to the left is an octave down, all the way to the right is an octave up. Amount is the mix of the new pitch, and drift lowers the resolution of the pitch shift. Again, I don't use a lot of pitch effects, but Hologram had this recommendation of setting the pitch shifting to none while drift is up, which it already is. So let's hear it. That's honestly super sick. A+ suggestion from Hologram there. Moving along to Diffusion, and our first effect here is Cascade, which is influenced by a Bucket Brigade style analog delay. Time is the delay time, amount is the repeats or feedback, which can self-oscillate, drift adjusts pitch modulation and instability / signal degradation. So let's hear Cascade. Next up is Reels, and that is a tape echo where time is time, amount is feedback, and drift again adds instability and degradation. I love how it already degrades so much. I love a good tape echo. Space is, quote, a versatile reverberation effect that seamlessly blends between 5 different reverb sounds, ranging from tight recording echo chambers to massive sustaining clouds of notes. Time sets the reverb size and tonality. Amount is wet-dry mix, which goes to 100% wet. And drift introduces pitch modulation to the reverb. In the middle. That's gorgeous. Collage is, again, collage is something I also need to quote. It's wild, spontaneous looping delay. I gotta read this from the manual. Collage destructively edits the delay line as you move the time knob, so quick knob movements or recorded gestures create pitch bends, double / half speed loops, all kinds of pleasing manipulations that repeat and fold in on themselves as feedback increases. Let's hear it first with the time knob all the way down, and I'm going to have the amount knob down a bit as well, and we will roll up the amount knob until it's almost self-oscillating. Now let's roll the time up. You can hear how whatever is in the loop as you move it, the pitch of it changes. Since the description of this one specifically mentions gestures, I think this is the perfect time to talk about that feature. The Chroma Console's gesture feature allows you to record knob movements of primary controls. Unfortunately, I don't think it works for drift, though that would be so cool. To enter gesture recording, we hit the last two buttons at the same time. Everything goes white. From there, we turn one or as many knobs as we want to record. So if I want the time to go back and forth a little bit or move, I'm just going to do that. I hit the bypass to exit that, but you could have just hit those last two buttons again. Let's hear it. We know this is working not just because our ears are telling us it's working, but we can see that diffusion button move from blue to white. You can erase a knob recording by moving it when it's in this live mode, or you can delete all gestures by holding down those last two buttons until you see everything flash again. There, it's gone. Yeah, but I love this effect. It's so cool and out there. Lastly, we have reverse, which is a reverse delay with variable playback speed / pitch of up to an octave up or down, where the time sets the speed / pitch. Might be easier to just hear that. We'll get there. A mount is a mount, and it gets full wet. Drift adds pitch modulation. So that's obviously up and down. But you can get those backwards sounding guitar solos if you really want to. We turn the mix all the way up. It's pretty cool. Lastly, we have texture, which only has one control knob and no secondary drift features. Let's start with filter, because that's first. By default, it is set to a tilt filter where EQ is natural at the center and turning left cuts highs while turning right cuts lows. You can refigure this to be a low pass or high pass filter instead within FX settings. I'm going to explain to you how to get there at a point, but I'm not going to actually do that at any point. Sorry if you were hoping for that. Let's hear it. I bet we could set that to a gesture, eh? I was right. I'm not surprised. Squash is a, quote, heavy-handed compressor and overdrive. Amount increases, well, everything that's going on with it, including tape saturation, compression, filtering, and artifacts. So it's also quite a nice crunch when cranked. I like that one. Next is cassette, where you can flutter and wow to your heart's content. Honestly, I like that more than the vibrato, which is fine. It'd be funny to have them on at the same time, but I'm not going to do that to you right now. Moving along to broken, which is chock full of pitch drops and various modulations to evoke motorized audio equipment in need of service. This one and the next one are ones where if you're using them pretty heavily because you want a lot of that kind of sound, but you still want a clean signal, good idea to use the mix for that one. And interference, speaking of which, is inspired by network glitches, radio static, and things like that. So you can still have that degradation, that really cool effect without absolutely losing your signal. Now that we've covered all the sounds, I would like to talk through some of the other features. For one, we have capture, which is an up to 30-second looper that you can record to by holding down the tap foot switch. So for shorter loops like that one, the LEDs are blue and they have soft fading edges to create seamless pads. For longer loops, you see that the LEDs are green and it's more of a traditional looper. You can see the loop time pass as the LEDs, the bright one, will move from left to right. Let's talk about the FX setup options for Chroma Console. These options make this pedal way more usable than it otherwise would be, especially in live scenarios. Among other things, and we'll talk about all of them in time, FX setup enables you to change the module order. To do that, we tap the outer two buttons at once. They do this fun little dance here, and then afterwards they're blue. If you want to change the order, you simply tap them in whatever your desired order is. And one thing to note is with presets, this is not a global setting. You can adjust this per preset, and I think that's really, really cool. Another great feature, and this is what I'm actually going to use, is dual bypass, where the bypass switch can turn different modules on or off instead of turning the entire pedal on or off. To do this, we again enter that mode. We're already there. We watch the animation. We hold down the bypass foot switch and you'll notice they're all blinking yellow, which means hitting the foot switch will bypass or engage these specific effects. If it's solid yellow, those will not be engaged, so they will always be on. I'm going to make it so the two outside modules are always on. I don't have anything set to those, but if I did, you see the outer ones are on while the middle ones are on and off. So let's go ahead and build a little effect here so you can hear that in action. So I did that because for some of those parts, I may not want the delay or the doubler to be engaged. And this just gives me the option to have, it's almost like a snapshot in a way, or just using a normal effects loop. I love this feature. I'm really glad they have it. And I'm especially glad that you can adjust it per preset. Within FX setup, we can also change the capture routing to be before or after the effects. You can map expression controls, which is a nice alternative to gesture, I think. Apparently the expression mapping menu also opens when an expression pedal is connected, but I haven't tried that. You can also change the filter style from tilt to high or low pass, and please consult your manual for more information on that. But now let's say I want to make a preset, taking everything we've learned into account. You can save up to 80 onboard presets, and again, they include effects and routing, primary and secondary control settings, gesture recordings, filter style, dual bypass settings, capture routing, expression mapping, and tapped tempo. So pretty much everything. Here's what I want to save. We're going to do Howl just north of 9 o'clock. So that's right there. Tilt is just below noon, so I'm already where I want to be there. That's great. Movement, doubler with the rate at about 2, amount at about 3, and where is gesture? No, I don't want gesture. Do I want secondary? Let's do secondary. Let's do drift, and let's really crank that drift. Neat. Back up with you. Diffusion. Doesn't matter. Diffusion. Collage. Yes. Amount at noon. Let's record a gesture that goes back and forth from the minimum to around 10 o'clock. So we'll go start there. And we're going to go up and down, up and down. I'm sorry if that's not in perfect focus. All right. There we go. And texture, let's do just a little bit of interference. I kind of had that crank, so just a skosh of interference. And then that was cool. The dual bypass is already on. So that's exactly the way I want it to be. But now that we've set it up, we can save it by pressing the 2 middle buttons. I want to save it to bank B, which is these yellow settings. To do that, I'm going to turn any of these amount knobs to yellow. And I'm going to save it into that first preset slot because it's empty. Now we've pressed those buttons again. And voila, it's saved. Look, it's happy about that. We navigate presets by holding down bypass, and we can tap up and down on these foot switches, or again, we can just turn any amount knob. If all of these LEDs, these buttons, are white, it means nothing is saved there. But if we find one to where there is something saved, which is this one, you'll see that they are lit up correctly. And then we hold down the bypass again so that we can use that effect with its full functionality. I wonder if I can save a gesture to that. That'd be kind of cool. You can, and I clipped. Sorry about that. But if you enjoyed this video, please check out the video on the screen where I build the offset broadcaster I'm playing today. Please like, comment, subscribe, hit up affiliate links in the video description, and feel free to drop a tip via the Say Thanks button below if you found this video helpful. Thanks for watching. Thanks for understanding. Until next time, my name is Emily. Goodbye.